and environment. We are going to look at efficiency and adaptation in nature. We'll look at industrial development. Then because of industrial development, how the population has exploded. Some warnings from nature. What have we learned? What should we learn? How do we live sustainably in harmony with nature? What can we do in our personal lives? And then some concluding remarks. All right, so last week I got this wonderful video through WhatsApp. We get all our knowledge through WhatsApp, right? So take a look at this. This is how a spider is building his house. Okay. Now, who has taught the spider how to build his house? Where is he getting the materials? So he is creating the materials from his own self. So he is his own material supplier. He is his own engineer. He has designed the house. He is his own contractor. He is building the house and he is the owner of the house. So he lives in that house himself because that house is a trap for his food. This is engineering efficiency at its peak in nature. Out of nothing, this whole spider web gets created. It's a fascinating video. In fact, this whole world is created in this manner, is how our ancient texts tell us. Just as the spider creates his own universe through himself. So he is both the material and the engineering cause in today's language, right? This is really, really fascinating. So once I saw this, I thought I would start my presentation with this. How we can learn from nature, how nature is supremely efficient, and there is amazing engineering in nature. Okay. This is one of the most fascinating things you would ever see. So let's go to the next one. Another way you can see nature working in an engineering efficiency or efficient engineering fashion is the Oxbow Lake formation. We have learned about this long time ago in our schools, right? So the river will flow in a meandering fashion depending upon how the landscape is and so on. Okay. As it meanders, the concave portion of the riverbed will get eroded and the convex portion of the riverbed will get silt deposits. So over time, the deposits are high enough that the river will actually cut itself off and then start flowing in a new channel when there is a flood. So that is how an Oxbow Lake gets formed, because in that channel of river, there is no more flow. There is only a lake. There are many examples of Oxbow lakes all over the world. This happens on a geological scale. It doesn't happen, within a lifetime. It may take a long time, depending upon the flow of the river and depending upon how often we get floods and so on and so forth. Okay. But these are examples in nature as to how nature is efficient and it engineers itself. Whether it is inert nature, as you see in case of a river, or you look at the sentient nature, as you see in the case of a spider. So these are examples in nature where you can see that nature engineers itself and it is engineered very efficiently. In this case, the water is trying to take the path of least resistance. That is how the Oxbow Lake is formed. Another way in which nature teaches us, look at how nature adapts to itself. Now, usually the sentient part of nature will adapt to the insentient part of nature. So the insentient part of nature here is the cold climate and so on, and the ice and the snow. But the sentient part of the nature adapts to this by having a fur coat. Okay, so these animals have thick fur, because of which they get protected during the cold months of the winter. Fascinating examples in nature. Here is an adaptation where the creature is camouflaging itself. It's very hard to figure out where is the gecko here in the left picture. Where is the chameleon here in the right picture? Isn't it fascinating? Completely camouflaged. The reason they do that is because their prey, their food, cannot really figure out what's going to come and hit them. So this is how they can catch their food. Okay. So these are examples in nature, how nature adapts to itself. Another example of efficiency in nature. See, whenever a tiger is chasing a bunch of deer, which deer will get caught? The one that is the least efficient, correct? The one that cannot run the fastest, that is the slowest. The one that is the slowest will get caught, correct? So look at it from the nature's point of view now. What nature is doing is it is eliminating the least efficient specimen in that species, and it is promoting the more efficient ones. So the more efficient ones will live, they will run away, but the least efficient one will get caught. That is how nature eliminates inefficiency and it promotes efficiency. That's how survival of the fittest happens. And then the propagation happens through the fittest organisms, not the unfit organisms. That's how nature progresses. That's how evolution takes place. So these are some fundamental environmental principles I have learned during my career as an environmental scientist and engineer. Nature exhibits perfect design. There are no mistakes in nature. Okay. Natural processes are both efficient and they work according to nature's laws. So there are laws of thermodynamics, laws of physics, laws of biology, laws of ecology. All of these things you can see in nature. Okay. Healthy ecosystems will exhibit biodiversity and a balance among species. So if you look at a healthy ecosystem, you will see a number of species in that ecosystem. Whereas if you see that one species is predominating in an ecosystem, then that system is not very ecologically balanced. Okay. Organisms will appear in ecosystems suitable for them. In the Bhagavad Gita, there is a verse that says, Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyadanna sambhava, which means that the food creates the beings. From ecological point of view, it means that the ecological conditions have to exist in an ecosystem before the organism that is appropriate for that environment or the ecosystem will appear in that ecosystem. All of these organisms are naturally programmed for survival and propagation, and each one has a beneficial role in the ecosystem. So the one that doesn't contribute to the benefit of the total ecosystem gets eliminated. That is the fundamental principle of ecology. Okay. You see, before the Industrial Revolution, before the steam engine was invented or perfected by James Watt, in nature, there was no such thing called waste. Okay. Whatever was being created, either in nature or through man-made processes, it used to get back into nature and it would get converted into something else useful. There was no such thing called waste. But since the invention of the steam engine, we started creating all kinds of things. We started producing all kinds of stuff, and we didn't know where to dispose of it. So that stuff kept getting dumped in landfills or just in the open. In many cases, in many places, we will see that there are not engineered landfills, but there are open dumps where waste is being simply thrown away, and then it gets blown away by the wind. It gets along with the water into the river streams and so on. So all of these problems we have created since the invention of the steam engine, since the invent of industrialization. That is when mechanized manufacturing started happening, centralized factories were built, and then population started concentrating along those factories. Because of that, the population simply exploded. So whereas we were about 1 billion in 1800, now we are almost 8 billion. So we have grown 8 times in 200 years. That's a phenomenal explosion. Now, population explosion can be okay. That's not necessarily a problem. But just imagine the footprint that this species is capable of having on this planet, because of which we have consumed the resources of this planet beyond our planet's capability or capacity to handle. That is the problem. Because of the explosion in population, transportation has evolved also. So initially, whereas we were only walking and then we used animals, then we invented the wheel, and the wheel has become mechanized now. Even in public transportation, initially it was animal driven, but now it is driven on petroleum. So how this transportation has evolved, initially we were transporting goods by hand or through animals, then through tractors. Now there are trains as well as ships. Because of this excessive transportation and excessive use of fossil fuels, see what can happen. The environmental impact of this excessive transportation or excessive use of petroleum fuel is traffic and smog. Apologies for the incorrect spelling here of traffic. So this is Manila. In Manila, in evening rush hour, this is the air quality. So sad, isn't it? I've been to Manila many, many times. And yes, you can choke. Even in some of the larger Indian cities, it used to happen in London as well as Los Angeles. But then because of policies for cleaning up the air and making sure the vehicles are clean, the air pollution laws in California are some of the toughest all over the world. For the fuel, we started mining. For the energy requirements, we started mining. Look at these coal mines. The one on the left is a conventional mine, whereas the one on the right is an open pit mine. Because we have taken fuel out of the belly of the earth and started burning it, the temperature of the atmosphere has risen. So since 1900 until now, we have gone up at least 1 degree Celsius on an average all over the world. Also, for getting our fuel and because of our expanding footprint, we have deforested the earth. In fact, our forests have dwindled to less than 10% during the last century or century and a half. Because of that, the wildlife has also declined. If you look at from 1970 until 2016, wildlife has declined by 65%. Okay, that's not a good thing because our life depends upon all the creatures. We are not alone on this planet. One of my good friends, Dr. Shailesh Rao, has created a movement called Climate Warriors or climatehealers.org. You should take a look at his website, climatehealers.org. It's a fascinating website. Okay. One of my favorite cartoon strips used to be Calvin and Hobbes. Okay. Calvin is a little boy of about 4 or 5 years old, kindergarten, and then he has a stuffed toy called Hobbes, which is a tiger. So whenever you see the tiger and this boy in one frame, the tiger comes alive. He talks to the boy. The boy is actually talking to himself. So he is playing the role of himself as well as the tiger. Okay. Whenever you see in that strip there is a third person, then the tiger is shown as a stuffed toy, which it is. Okay. But when they are together, then Calvin will talk to himself through the tiger. So he says, people keep talking about opening more wilderness for development. We seem to understand the value of oil, timber, minerals, and housing, but not the value of unspoiled beauty, wildlife, solitude, and spiritual renewal. So Hobbes says, we need to start putting prices on the priceless. And Calvin says, yeah, if our woods are worth a zillion, jillion, bajillion, think what Alaska is worth. Alaska is a huge state with a lot of natural beauty. See, in the last year and a half, we've been experiencing a worldwide pandemic of COVID-19, right? What does the UN Environment Chief Inger Anderson say about this? Our continued erosion of wild spaces has brought us uncomfortably close to animals and plants that harbor diseases that can jump to humans. One theory is because wild animals were sold in a wet market in a city in China, somehow the viruses have jumped from those animals to humans. Whether that is true or not, we don't know. But if that is true, we know for sure that we have encroached upon wild spaces. About that, there is no doubt, because I showed you the picture of how the deforestation has taken place and how we have eroded the wild ecosystems, isn't it? So where will these wild creatures grow? Where will these creatures from the forest grow? They will come into where humans have come into the humans have actually encroached into the wild spaces. Therefore, the wild animals have come into human spaces. So Ruchi Pandey is asking me, sir, can you please explain whether population explosion is directly responsible for environmental degradation, or is it modernization and innovation? I would say neither. The main problem is not population explosion and not modernization either. The main problem is human greed. Human greed wanting more than what is necessary for our survival and for our well-being. I'll come to that. So bear with me. Now let us take a look at this whole situation from a completely different perspective. Consider the planet as one organism. Okay, and on that planet, all these living beings like you and me and the plants and the birds and the beasts, everybody. Okay, the problem is excessive human activity has led to environmental degradation, and that is why the planet is ailing. Okay, now what has happened? Pandemic has slowed down human activity. In the last 1 year, we have only been engaged in essential activities. All the non-essential activities have been slowed down or have been closed down. And because of that, environmental quality has improved. So let us see how that happens. If you look at another Calvin and Hobbes strip, he says, I was reading about how countless species are being pushed towards extinction by man's destruction of forests. Sometimes I think the surest sign that intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe is that no one has tried to contact us so far, because we have been living in such a dumb fashion. That's what he's saying. It's so thought-provoking. Unfortunately, Bill Watterson, who created this strip, is no more with us, but the strip is immortal. I love it. Because of this lockdown, just see how the air quality has improved. This is a picture in Delhi. On the left, before the lockdown, see how the air quality was. And after the lockdown, within about 10 days, the air quality improved. Okay. The river Yamuna used to look full of this, all the foam because of all the soap and the detergents people used to let into the river. Okay. But whereas within 10 days after lockdown, see how clean the river is, how clean the water is. What does this tell us? It tells us that the environment can get cleaned up very quickly if we stop polluting it. Okay. On Mumbai streets, you could see the national bird, the peacock. Earth is not owned only by humans. Earth belongs to all of us, all the creatures, not just human beings. In China, this is a picture taken by the US National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. before the lockdown, you can see in Northeast China how much air pollution there is. Whereas after the lockdown, very little. In Venice, Italy, a tourist destination. Earlier, these canals used to be full of tourists, during which time you would rarely see dolphins. But on the right, during the lockdown, people have spotted dolphins. Los Angeles skyline. As you are landing on Los Angeles airport, on the right side, you can see this. I've never seen it this clear. During the lockdown, it became so clear. Another photograph in Europe where the air quality is so beautiful. So the questions raised by the COVID-19 pandemic are urban clusters away from nature good for us? You see, all of these problems happened in urban areas. Even the pandemic is mostly in urban areas. In rural areas, there isn't that much effect of the pandemic. Okay. Shall we therefore rethink our development models and work towards living in harmony with Mother Nature? Can we do reverse urbanization, or can we achieve ruralization? These are the questions I have been pondering, because in any ecosystem or in environment, if it is able to carry the waste material without adverse effects, it has got good assimilative capacity. But if there is pollution, or if this assimilative capacity is exceeded, then the pollution will remain. Undesirable material in that ecosystem or in that environment will remain. We don't want that to happen. We want to make sure that the assimilative capacity of our environment is not exceeded. That is why we should live sustainably. So what is sustainable living? We should live a balanced life in harmony with Mother Nature, respectful of our symbiotic relationship with ecology. We are a part of the environment. We are not apart from it. Our bodies are created from molecules we have picked up from the environment. Okay, so our bodies are a part of the environment. Reduce the use of natural and personal resources. We should live simply. Simple living and high thinking. We should reduce the ecological or carbon footprint by altering methods of transportation, energy consumption, and diet. In fact, we should travel only when it is actually necessary. If it is not necessary, just stay at one place and enjoy. We should adhere to the principles of sustainable development, which means we should develop in such a way that the way we are enjoying life right now, the future generation should also be able to enjoy the same quality of life. That is called sustainable development. Why do we do all this? Because we want to be well. All of us seek happiness at all times through wellness. At the mental level, the wellness will be emotional, spiritual, and intellectual. At the physical level, it will be physical wellness, which is I'm healthy, and environmental wellness. The environment around me is clean. And at the social level, social, occupational, and financial, we want to be well in all these aspects of wellness, isn't it? But we should realize that this health, wellness, and joy are actually within us. That is our essential nature. We have to recognize this and work towards that. This gets unfolded through living in harmony with Mother Nature. This is some of the contemplation I'm doing with you. It's basically, I'm throwing my ideas at you. Try to catch those, try to contemplate on those. You don't have to necessarily agree with me. Okay? You may disagree with me, but that's okay. You may have your own opinion, but look at this from an open mind. Because of all of these problems, I thought that the solution for this would be to live closer to nature. So this is a picture of the Sadhana forest near Pondicherry. If you have not visited this place, I think you should visit this place. How people can live in a forest and live so well. I've met the person who runs this forest. He is a phenomenal rishi, modern rishi. Okay. We should set up these eco-villages in rural areas, which will allow reverse urbanization and provide opportunities for people to live in harmony with nature. In fact, during this pandemic, a lot of people have moved away from cities to rural areas because when you live in rural areas, we are closer to nature. And if we have modern communication facilities, we don't have to go to work in the office. Many of us don't have to go to work. Okay. Many of us don't have to go to work in the office. Of course, we have to work in our homes. That is what I have also done for the last many years. I've been working from home. I have a small office in my home where I sit, and I have all the communication equipment with me, all the gadgets with me, with which I can communicate with the entire world. So even before the pandemic, I had this whole setup with me. And luckily, this is a boon for me during the pandemic. So I can do all of my work all over the world sitting right here. Okay. These eco-villages are regenerative, where people live in a responsible manner, sustainable manner. And these are built on values of harmony and compassion. So what is an eco-village? If you look at the definitions that you can find online: socially, culturally, economically, and or ecologically sustainable community. It's a deliberate community which strives to reduce negative impact on the natural environment through intentional physical design and resident behavior choices. So people build these communities so that they can be in harmony with nature, have the least carbon footprint, and also live in harmony with each other. That is also important. See, the problem is not between man and nature. The problem can be between man and man, right? Because we have considered ourselves to be apart from the other. That is the fundamental error. In a typical eco-village, these are some of the features that can be incorporated. Eco-friendly housing with eco-friendly building materials, organic farming and dining where the food comes directly from the farm to the fork or to the table. For the last 3.5 years, more than 3.5 years, I've done an experiment of eating mostly natural food, which has worked phenomenally well with me. Water can be recycled and reused throughout the eco-village so that there is no water import from outside or wastewater discharge to the outside. In India, we talk about zero water discharge, zero liquid discharge, that kind of development, okay, which can be run on renewable energy for carbon neutrality. Waste will be recycled. See, we have heard about the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle, right? In this Govardhan School of Sustainability, they talk about 7 R's. Rethink, refuse, reduce, repurpose, reuse, recycle, and remaining, you let it rot so that it can be utilized again as food for the vegetation in the area. And vegetation is, of course, used by us as food, isn't it? So these are the 7 R's of sustainable living. It can have dedicated green areas, including forests where feasible. Where I live in the community, we have a small walking trail where we can walk along a small stream. It's a beautiful stream. I've taken some videos near that stream, which are on our website also. Incidentally, the one thing we have not told you about lab dogs, I'm going to tell you a best kept secret at the end of this presentation. Okay. The eco-village can have model educational institutions focused on the curiosity of the mind and aspiration of greater good, where people can come and see how we can live in harmony with nature. So it could be a learning center as well. Of course, it should have modern communication facilities, because even if we live in an eco-village, we are living in an eco-village of the 21st century, right? It should have modern communication facilities so that we can talk to the rest of the world. But they should be run on renewable energy. This is an example of a smart enterprise eco-village, which has an incubation and innovation center also. Okay. These are the various different aspects of a smart village: land regeneration, housing, green power, farming, local economy, financial inclusion, and culture. All of these things will comprise this eco-village. Okay. This is a picture of the Govardhan eco-village near Mumbai. This is a community center where gatherings like this can happen whenever we are able to actually meet in person. Right now we are meeting virtually, But if we want to meet together in person, then there could be facilities available for the community to gather. Now we've learned about the eco-village. What can we do? What can you and I do in our own personal lives, everyday life, wherever we are? We are not able to go to an eco-village right now. Right now, I don't live in an eco-village. I cannot leave wherever I'm living right now and go into the jungle. Okay, don't worry. Live wherever you are, stay wherever you are, but do these things at least. Start from here, wherever you are. You don't have to go anywhere. Start living simply. For that, you don't require any infrastructure at all. Whatever you are doing, start living simply. Start living with fewer things at the need level. Whenever you are utilizing anything, just ask yourself, do I really need it? If I don't need it, I don't have to use it. Okay. So start living at need level. Do not hoard unnecessarily. Have you seen any animal hoarding for itself? No. Animals don't hoard. Why are we hoarding? Until we don't stop hoarding, we won't even come up to the animal level. Okay. We have to eat well. Eat to live, but not live to eat. Let's ask each one of us, honestly, let me ask myself, am I in the category of eat to live, or am I in the category of live to eat? And I have to consciously eat to live, not live to eat. And I would recommend as much natural food as possible without processing, because that has the least energy footprint. Okay. We should exercise regularly. And we should help others as possible, because joy comes not from being selfish, but true joy comes from being selfless. True joy comes from being helpful to other people. We should meditate and contemplate like we are doing right now. If we live in this manner, what will be the environmental and social impact? You know, I am heavily into natural diet. This is what I always talk about. If we eat mostly fruits and seeds, large fruit trees provide shade, they provide habitat for birds and help conserve groundwater. Okay. Trees have a natural food in general has a very low carbon footprint. Fruit demand incentivizes the farmers. So farmers will be incentivized to plant more fruit trees. Now fruit trees are easier to maintain. You don't have to really babysit them. So they have a potential to provide long-term income to the farmer for relatively low maintenance. So it's good for the environment, it's good for our health, as well as it is good for the farmer. Okay. To understand, learn, and implement these disciplines in our own life, we started a program called Sattva. This Sattva happens to be a division of lab docs. Okay. This is the best kept secret, I promised you. You should go to this website, sattva.life, and see what fun things we are doing. Okay. There is a number here if you want to send a WhatsApp message. Some final thoughts. Nature exhibits efficiency and adaptability. As we saw in some pictures earlier, efficiency is rewarded and inefficiency is penalized. So do we want to be efficient, or do we want to be inefficient? It is for each one of us to decide. How do we become efficient? By utilizing the least number of things and being the most productive and helpful to other people. Industrial revolution has brought to us many modern conveniences, but environmental quality gradually degraded. So therefore, can we rethink human settlement models? Should we go live in rural areas, in nature, closer to nature? Can we live in harmony with nature? That's the way to be healthy and happy. Thank you so much for paying attention to what I was saying. I have spoken for approximately 35 minutes. I'll be happy to take any questions you may have. So if you want to, how about I start with the questions that people have already asked on the chat box, but I'm going to stop sharing the screen here first. Okay. Shall we say one-horned rhinoceros as an example of this? Yeah. In fact, every creature, the way its body is designed by nature, it is for efficiency. Our body is also designed for efficiency for our species. We don't know, unfortunately, how we can use this body most efficiently. We have body mind, and intellect. These three are tools for us to utilize to realize who we are. That's the ultimate purpose of human life, to understand how this whole thing works and to understand who we are. There are four fundamental questions we are all completely ignorant about. We don't know the answers. Who am I? What is this world? Who has created this world? And how to live properly in the world so that we will understand the answers, the proper answers to these questions. That is a completely different topic on which I can make another presentation, some other time. But these are the things we need to contemplate on. Akshaya Gayatri has asked, Akshaya Gayatri Rao, monkey bee virus, similar kind. You see, the viruses that jump from wild animals to us can jump. How can they jump? Only when we come in close contact with them, isn't it? So we should have enough jungles and enough wilderness areas where wildlife can live. They don't have to come in contact with us. We don't have to come in contact with them. We should live and let live, isn't it? So for that, we have to make sure that there are enough trees on this planet, enough forests on this planet. Go to climatehealers.org. I think it's a fascinating thing. You will be able to learn a lot from that. Okay. Manish Nangaonkar is asking, all said is very right, but economy is all about consumption and there is no place for sustainability and ecology. Pandemic shows the effect of less consumption. How this can be taken up? Okay, we have done the experiment in capital, this kind of economy, isn't it? This is not the way to live. Capitalism is an okay idea until there is plenty of resources. Okay, but when the resources are limited, it cannot work. And economy cannot work apart from ecology. Okay? Economy is dependent upon ecology. Unless we understand this, unless we understand that our base is nature, all our grandiose statements about economy are based on a very stable ecology. If that ecological base we erode, then economy will simply crumble like a pack of cards. Okay. If we don't understand this and if we don't voluntarily go in that direction, then we will be forced to go in that direction. Nature is supreme. Human beings are not supreme. We may be 8 billion right now, but there are more than 8 billion bacteria on our face right now. So if we look at the number of different creatures on this planet versus human beings are not even a speck. We unnecessarily consider ourselves to be great. We are not. From nature's point of view, we are like any other organism. So if we do not live properly and contribute to the larger harmony and well-being, then human beings will also get eliminated. We will become extinct and we will be the cause of our own extinction because we haven't understood who we are. We haven't understood how to live in harmony with nature. That is our problem. IIT in economics is all about economy of waste and GDP of garbage. I didn't quite understand this.
Actually, what happened basically in the last 50 years or 30 years, it's all about consumption and construction of all the surrounding things. Because if you don't consume this 7 years, if you take economic parameters, doctor, it is all about steel, coal, fuel, petrol, and all. There is no environment word in economic aspects, right? So it is all pollution, garbage that we are creating. And the more the garbage, if you take West, the Western countries, all these 100 years, they consume and they created a lot of waste. And that's why they become more developed, right? Now, all of a sudden, we discovered this phenomena of nature and imbalance and climate change and all. And now we are saying, okay, we have to go, but how? Because unless we don't consume energy, unless we don't consume minerals, there is nothing.
Okay, so this is the misunderstanding, no? Our misunderstanding is if we consume more, then we will become more happy. That is the misunderstanding. That is not true. When are we happiest? During the day. We are happiest during the day when we are fast asleep. Why do we go to sleep? We want to go to sleep because we want to be happy. That's when joy is experienced, but it is experienced in unawareness. During the day, we are chasing something. So while chasing something, we get tired. And then after we get tired, we go to sleep. Not just the one who is sick, not just the one who is tired, not just the one who is poor, who wants to go to sleep, but the one who is healthy and the one who is rich also wants to go to sleep. Because during sleep, we get the best experience of joy. But unfortunately, that experience is in unawareness. If we are able to get that experience of joy and well-being while we are awake, how wonderful will it be? That experience can happen only if we live in this manner, the way I explained to you. Live simply, not chasing desires, but having no desires. When we work for the benefit of the totality, not just for our own selfish desires, that is when we are truly happy. Now, unless you actually do this experiment, you will not understand it. The example I always like to give is of a mother. How is the mother happy? The mother is happy serving her child and serving her family. A lot of times the mother will cook and feed the child and she will remain hungry, but she will derive contentment by feeding her child. That is what happens. So when we do something for the totality, when we do something for the society, when we do something for the environment, we feel more joyful from within than when we feel by consuming, than the joy we get by consuming and by being selfish. So this is something most people will not understand unless you actually do this as an experiment. So I'm not saying, as I said in the beginning, don't believe me or don't think that what I'm saying is true or it may be different from what you're thinking of. Just look at it or think of it or listen to it from an open mind and see how you can try to implement some of these things in your life. That will be a good experiment to do. Ruchi Pandey says the way you explained as an environment as an engineer is really awe-inspiring and thoughtful or thorough. Thank you very much. Currently, I'm teaching a course on the principles of environmental science for people who don't have environmental background or who are not pursuing environmental science or engineering as a career. They are pursuing something else. You know, somebody's in business, somebody's in education, somebody's in some other discipline, but they all want to become familiar and appreciative of our role in ecology, our role in the ecosystem, and how we can live properly as aware, conscious, environmentally conscious citizens, so that we can all be stewards of environment. The way we have lived with the environment is, we have looked upon the environment as something we can consume and enjoy. That's not how it is. Environment and nature is like our mother. So how do we deal with our mother? When we are hungry, we go to the mother, we go to her lap, and we drink her milk, isn't it? But the way we have lived in the last 150, 200 years is we have been trying to bite into our mother and suck her blood. That's not good. If a mother finds that the child is behaving in this manner, what will the mother do? The mother will kick the child away, put the child in a corner, facing the corner, and say, okay, stay here, you are now grounded. That is what has happened to us in the last 1.5 years. If we look at this whole situation from a completely different perspective, we will learn so many new things, so many new insights on how to live. We have proven to ourselves in the last 1.5 years that we can do without a number of things, isn't it? Has our life become any less? No. Most of us have actually become healthier because we have consumed the right kind of things. We have eaten only home cooked food. So we've become healthier. For the last 3.5 years, I've been eating mostly fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. Do I look like I'm malnourished? No, I eat very little quantity of food every day. But it is very healthy. See, I have done this as an experiment in improving the process efficiency of feeding of this human body. And I've realized that if we feed this body unprocessed food, then the body remains so healthy. And of course, you have to make sure that you are able to digest it. So you do exercise, of course. That sattva.life, what I showed you, go to that website and see what kind of fun things we are doing there. There is another comment here by Rohini. Sir, in a country like India, to practice sustainability, we need to have resources. How can we contribute as individuals to spread such valuable knowledge from the richest to the poorest? Are Baba, to practice sustainability, we are talking about not utilizing resources. You are saying we need to have resources. No, we have to live simply so that we can live with the least number of resources. That is the whole point. Okay, so whatever resources we do have, we utilize them efficiently. And we make sure that we use the least amount of resources and produce the best result. That is called efficiency. So as I told you, in the last 3.5, 4 years, I've been eating mostly natural food. So the energy that goes into producing that food is very little. In fact, that food is creating oxygen and it is green. It is reducing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere because all the food is coming through photosynthesis and no energy is going into, or very little energy is going into producing it and bringing it to my table, right? The only carbon footprint of the food I eat is the transportation cost, isn't it? Otherwise, I don't process my food at all. It is created by nature, and in the process of creating that food, nature is actually absorbing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen. So it's an environmentally regenerative process of eating, feeding our body. Okay. How can poor practice sustainability? That is the problem. So that's what, as a social animal or as a community, we want to make sure that those who can afford to have a lavish lifestyle will voluntarily live simply. Why? Because they have realized from within that living lavishly is not equal to joy. Living simply is equal to joy. That's the deal. Okay, so if we understand this, there are plenty of resources on this planet for everybody. In fact, the planet is currently producing food enough to feed almost 14-15 billion people. We have only 8. Why are still people hungry? Because of other reasons, not because food is not available. So there is plenty of stuff on this planet for everybody's well-being. Okay, but there isn't enough stuff for even one person's greed. Correct? So greed has no limit. One greedy person can completely destroy the planet. Whereas if we all live according to the need level, if we are not greedy, if we are not wanting to hoard, then we can all live beautifully on this planet. So Pranjali is saying, so true, I am experiencing it in the Sattva family. So delighted to have you, Pranjali, as a part of the Sattva family, as a sister. Manish is saying, one thing I started in family is stopped hot water bath. A lukewarm bath is much refreshing and just half bucket is more than enough. Great. So these are the small things we can do in our own personal lives where we can live more sustainably, better in harmony with nature. And that way we will be all happy. About that, there is no doubt. So if we all live in this manner, then we will be healthy, we will be joyful, and the planet will be sustainable. So I wish and pray all of us are encouraged to live in this manner at all times. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vikram. It was a very insightful session yet again. As always, this is something that, Milind has put a very important note over there, the cost of economy. So certainly the cost of economy could not be ecology. And the overconsumption is something that is not only happening in our home courts, but it is also happening in our work life and also in the industrial environment. Everything is so overconsumed that we are overexploiting resources. Even human is also a very important resource, and because of our nature, we are exploiting that resource also. So if we are human and we are doing everything for the humanity, then that is something that we should always think about. So
Correct.
it was really insightful, and I could not have asked for a better insightful session towards the end of a hectic day. Again,
You're most welcome.
we are very thankful to you, Dr. Vikram, and hopefully we will be doing such session, in the coming days as well.
Namaste
So thank
to
you,
everybody.
everyone.
Have a
Thank you,
wonderful
everyone.
evening.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, and
Bye-bye.
thank you for joining us. Bye.